everyone, it's Stéphane Compin from Lux Talks podcast, and we are live today with episode 7. And I'm joined by Elias Chbeir from Skilon and from Elias Consulting. So, Elias, thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you.
And so maybe we can start to talk a little bit about yourself and what you are doing.
Maybe if you want me to present myself, so I was born in Beirut, in Lebanon, long time ago. So I grew up during the time where there were 17 years of war in Lebanon, and I landed with my parents in Brussels in 1991 before arriving later on to Luxembourg. So my dad was already working here in Brussels in several years. I started my career as an entrepreneur, and so I'm ending it also as an entrepreneur. I started for several years.
Why did you start as? Sorry to interrupt, but why did you start? So you did university, and then you started your own business right after university.
Yeah, so I finished in computer science, and then I felt that I didn't want to be bound with one thing, and I really wanted to touch base on several stuff. And so I had many interests outside of computer science, and I wanted to do development, but I also wanted to do something else. And that something else was related to the music industry. And so I wanted to be able to do both without having a contract that says you can't do this, but you have to do that. That's it. And so that was basically why. But I worked, of course, as a software engineer on my own expense. And I had a master's degree later on in the late 1990s. After that, I was hired by a biopharma company in Brussels. That was in 2008. Mm-hmm. And then got an MBA. I was asked also to go either to Dublin or to Luxembourg. And I said, okay, so where would I like to start an office? I chose Luxembourg because Luxembourg was a couple of hours from Brussels. And so it was easier, let's say. And this is basically how I landed in Luxembourg, worked several years, and after those several years, I said, maybe now it's time that I go back to entrepreneurship. I had experience. I had an interest. I was participating a lot in networking in Luxembourg, silently, let's say, because at that time I wasn't that known in the ecosystem. And I started my own company to support in digital transformation strategies. So I sensed that everyone wanted to go towards digital transformation, that Luxembourg was also heading towards that in many ways that you can see, whether it's through innovation or projects led by big companies in Luxembourg, not only banks. And so I thought, okay, that will be the time where I was already doing it at my previous employer, so last employer, and I wanted to evolve in that, but I wanted to evolve more towards other things like blockchain, artificial intelligence, and things like that. And this is what led me to start my own business, which is called a very, very nice name. So I went with the easiest thing. And then at the same time, I also invested in a couple of companies, one in Brussels, one in Paris.
And just to ask you one question about, so you decide to set up a company in Luxembourg. Why in Luxembourg? Because, at the time when you set up your company, Luxembourg maybe was not so well known in terms of the right ecosystem to support, the business you wanted to go in, and maybe you had other capitals in Europe or maybe in the US that were better suited to sustain your new business.
Well, in fact, when I started as an entrepreneur, I also wanted to be able to do several things, right? And I always wanted to manage a certain business right from behind my laptop without having to, I can be maybe one day in Malaga or in Africa or any PG island or whatever island. So, and be able to run my business. And so that's one thing. So you can run it from anywhere, right? But the other thing is why Luxembourg itself is because, as I said, before I left my employer, I was already networking silently, very interested in discovering something outside biopharma, which so I come from the, if you want, the health tech. And in Luxembourg, you have the possibility to discover FinTech. And as I said, I was interested in blockchain and stuff like that, which was applied a lot. I'm not talking only about cryptocurrency, so that's not the point. But I was really interested. And let's say that I worked during the past years at my employer somewhere in the middle between business and IT. And while networking, I realized that I really can do something here in Luxembourg. It's a small country indeed, but the country has lots of opportunities. You know, now that we are, I mean, for a small company like Luxembourg, having ambitions towards space is just, you know, somebody who doesn't know Luxembourg is just say, seriously. So and we're going there, and it's booming these days. And so there is an energy here, which I love, which I can find also in Paris, of course, and in Brussels. But I felt like in Luxembourg, everyone knows everybody in a certain way, and I like this. I like this.
Very international as well.
It's very international. Very international, and you know how many times we met together during events. So it's really nice to be able to feel that like a big family. So Luxembourg remains my let's say my favorite place.
And coming back to so you spent several years in the pharma industry. Did you only work in Luxembourg during that time, or did you were posted somewhere else, or did you travel as well?
Yeah. So my team was decentralized. So I was managing about 200 persons, and they were a lot in China and in India, all around Europe. But I think while you mentioned this, one of my best experiences was in India. So 5 years going back and forth to India was really nice. I discovered a new culture, a new way of doing business, a new way of dealing with people, even in my own domain, with a new way of dealing with IT projects. Although it was difficult at the beginning, but it was maybe one of the most fulfilling challenges personally. So I traveled a lot.
So that
at one point you have to land back at home.
yes. So I'm coming back to the fact that you seems to be an entrepreneur since the beginning of your working career. I want to talk about your new project, which is I think a mix of IT and recruitment. So maybe can you talk a little bit about this new project, which is the new company is called Skilon, and just tell us how it started and what do you do, and a bit of an overview of this new company.
Basically, when I was managing 200 persons, it was very difficult. It was very difficult to find the right people when I really needed them. Very tough. Everybody wanted the same person, and next door, nobody wanted to go fetch them outside. It was difficult. If you want to test them, it's not easy. You're going to have to pay money to bring them in, to take a test or to interview them. So all these things were really not possible and difficult. And when I started my own company and working with my clients, I discovered they had absolutely the same issues like me. And so the idea came back into my mind, which was what I was hoping in the past, is What if I had a list of candidates where everyone had already taken tests, and instead of wasting the time to find the right candidate, I would already know if the candidate technically is fit for the position that I'm looking for. You know, if you take into consideration recruiters, right? Recruiters, they need to hire for IT, they need to hire for marketing, they need to hire for finance, and so on, and for sales. So they don't necessarily speak these languages. They don't speak sales, they don't speak IT, and they don't speak these other things. But then they try to manage the maximum as they can. For example, by matching, let's say, keywords on a job description versus keywords on CVs. But then you might end up through the whole sourcing process by finding some candidates which can talk very well and say that they're really good and their CV is bright and shiny. But when you are very, very in advance in your recruitment process and you really want to test them technically after having filtered several candidates, that's when you find out that, okay, they can sell themselves very good, but when you put them into action, they cannot really do it. And so today, you're going to tell me, but Elias, there are already some technologies, so there are some tools that allow you to do video interviews. There are some tools that allow you also to do an assessment online, of course. But there was another problem. And the problem is, if you're a millennial now, and you want to apply, let's say you're a full stack Java developer, you want to apply to 5 companies. And it's coming in the next 3 to 5 years maximum, everyone will ask you to do assessments online. And so you're not going to be happy to go take for 5 applications, job applications, 5 times more or less the same test around Java.
Yeah.
And so if you take it one time, you will make your life easy. You will make everybody else's life easy. So if I'm a recruiter and I don't know anything, let's say, or I don't know much about IT, I can come and I can find these people taking tests in the skills that they think they are good at. And the point of creating Skilon is not to say you are not a good candidate or you are not good in that skill. Point is, if you go to LinkedIn today, you can pretend you are good in 50 skills. LinkedIn allows you 50 skills. I mean, seriously, no matter how old you are, I mean, I don't have 50 skills, but sometimes you are forced to put it on LinkedIn because people cannot find you, maybe they use keywords. Okay, but our intent is to say, if you have a skill A, B, C, and you think you're good in the 3, take 3 tests, 1 in A, 1 in B, 1 in C. If you succeed A and if you succeed B, show them, show off even your results. You can even share it on LinkedIn if you want. And if you fail C, hide it on Skilon, of course. Hide it. So don't show the bad result. So we don't want you to show the bad result. We want you to shine with those skills where you really shine in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so recruiters can shorten by at least 50% the time of sourcing and recruiting.
Yeah, which
and you can hire from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, which is really important because if you don't show your best skills, then the problem is that it takes time for the recruiter, and as a person, you know, applying to a new job, you are also losing your time. So if I understand well, are you acting like a kind of cloud-based database with the skills of the people, and then, you know, as long as they are looking for a job, recruiters can just connect and see what's going on. I do a test today. I've set up all my skills. I am on the cloud on your system, and then recruiters can just log into your system and check, you know, if that person can suit. Does it stay here while the person is working in the new job, or is it erased, or how does it work?
Well, it is up to the candidate. So the candidate, there's one button where he can say hide, for example. If he wants to delete, there is also another button that says delete. But I don't think that any candidate would like to delete, but rather probably hide if they don't want to be disturbed by recruiters, if they just started a new job and they want to see if they're happy first, and stuff like that. So yes, let's say it's very important to understand we are not a recruiting agency. So we are not going to say, hey, we're going to match this candidate with this thing. We're not a recruiting agency at all. We don't function as a recruiting agency, and we are not a job board either. So it's a list of candidates with skilled candidates, let's say, a kind of a LinkedIn, but with proven skills, where anyone can come and try to check.
And so, which means that I've seen a bit the other day when you did a presentation. If I understand well, if today I have, I don't know, let's say 5 skills where I'm really good at, but I failed on 2. Maybe in 2 years' time, I had training, I grew into the company, I acquired new skills. Then I can take the test again to just validate that on your system. Is it correct?
Of course. So in fact, when you take a skill and you fail, it's hidden automatically for you because we don't want you to have issues in showing it. But you can only take the skill test again 90 days later.
Okay.
So 3 months, which means that the platform is going to grow in the future. We have we're going to provide also the opportunity for persons to find the right courses for them. Okay, so it's like kind of partnerships with online courses programs like Coursera or other stuff, where we say, okay, so you failed this and basically failed in that particular sector, and then we advise you to take these kind of courses before you come and take it back. But the platform is not only for finding, let's say, the skilled candidates for the right position. It is also, so now we are working with one of the companies where they don't want their people to come and register on Skilon because they're their employees, but because of COVID-19, they want to see where they sit at the digital level. So they want to test the digital skills of their people. And this platform is not only for IT, but basically we're starting with IT. So any digital skill, any skill that I can test, it could be even English, the English language or the German language or any language. So as long as I can give you a list of questions, then you can test it. The difference between this and IT is that in IT, we also provide a coding sector where you really have to code online. So you have to write real code and compile there.
Okay. And who is your target audience? So you have the people that are looking for a job on one side and want to check on their skills, validate them. Are you selling your product to or providing your product to recruiters and companies directly, or only companies?
No, so we are working. For example, one of the first to work with us was ADEM.
Oh yeah, for the people that are listening.
So ADEM's.
Yeah, an employment agency in Luxembourg.
Yeah, exactly. So they were one of the first adopters. So we were working with them since late Q3. So let's say October, November. So Q4 2019. And so we work with them in different areas. So for the employed, for the people that are looking for a job, ADEM sends them to take trainings, and then we validate if they really understood anything on the training. This is one of the things. In other areas also, some companies are rejecting some of the candidates, saying that they're not good, and ADEM would like to know if they're really good or not. So they send them over, we give them tests. So you see that the possibility of using this. So we are targeting several audiences. We are targeting startups, for example, for whom they cannot really spend a big budget also to find people quickly and from anywhere in the world. We are targeting big companies where it is also important for them to hire a large number of people, and they will not find them all within even in the Grand region. They sometimes need to go maybe to Ukraine or to India or other places. We are also targeting, for example, training companies that provide training but they only give you a paper of attendance, so they can also use our platform. And last but not least, sorry. So we are also targeting a new group, which I will keep it for secret now, but we are going to mention it very soon. It's a good idea and really revolutionary. But just giving you the teaser now, saying
Yeah, okay. So I will follow. I will follow up then. Coming.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, yes, just that's it.
Yeah, so really interesting to see a new concept coming on the market in terms of matching, validating the quality of the candidate. Coming back to your journey as an entrepreneur, can you? So you've been entrepreneur when you at the early stage, and then you worked for a big corporation, and now back as an entrepreneur. Can you tell us what are the things that you did not expect when you started as an entrepreneur? Things that you didn't think of, and that maybe you were able to use afterwards the mistakes you did when you started again.
Oh, there were quite a few things that, let's say, I didn't expect. Some of them were more positive than others. Let me maybe give you one positive and one less positive thing that I didn't expect. So let's start with the less positive. So I never thought it would be an easy path, of course, but I didn't expect that some companies, I'll say it very direct, are bound to working only with other big companies and not willing to, let's say, take the risk with an experienced person instead. So I was a one-man company. So even if it was people who already knew me and they were from my network. So for an entrepreneur in a small country like Luxembourg, where, I mean, you don't have like 50,000 big companies or whatever, and this was basically my target audience. It was quite a tough start, but finally it was worth it. So today I cannot say it's still the case, but that was not something that I was expecting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because it was the same for me. Having worked for a big company in Luxembourg, knowing a lot of people, when I started as an entrepreneur, I really didn't expect that it would be tough, to make connections with corporate accounts in Luxembourg, despite the fact that I was quite well known. But of course, I was small compared to my competitors, and it was difficult to show that I had the expertise, and basically people had to wait like they wanted to have a kind of a background experience of the company to see how how we would survive maybe the first 2 years in order to make sure that they wouldn't make a mistake using a small company.
Yeah, there are things like that. So my criticism towards that is not in a negative way, but it was affecting me, let's say, not in a rather positive way at the beginning, because that is, you might expect difficulties in a project that you're running, or in maybe convincing a certain client, but you wouldn't expect this on top of that at the beginning. But so it takes time that people say, okay, he's been here, he didn't shut down, so he must, and then you start having references, and so it becomes a little bit better. Now, if I have to give you a more positive thing, is that since I became an entrepreneur, the most positive thing is the liberty to rule my life as I want, whether it be work, social, and family. And this is simply priceless, really. Totally priceless.
I totally agree. I discovered it very late compared to you, but I must say that it's, like you said, it's priceless. And it's despite the difficulties, that's a big advantage in my new life.
Yeah, well, Indeed. So it's going to be hard to go back although it might happen in 5 years from now, or it might never happen to go back as an employee. But definitely, it's something that is worth a lot, and that one needs to take into consideration when you want to change something. Are you ready to give up this liberty?
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about some challenges and advantages. Any big failure in your journey as an entrepreneur that you overcame or didn't? Can you tell us a little about that?
Do we have enough time? Just kidding. So, well, I had lots of challenges in my life, but if I had to choose one, I'd say that my biggest challenge was to start my career again at the age of 30. So, as I stated earlier, I started my career as an entrepreneur, right? And at that time, I was more involved in sales and business development than in software development. So after several years, I was at the point where things were starting to go in the wrong direction. So I had to take a hard decision, sell everything before I had nothing left to sell, and start from zero again. And that was tough, after having worked several times and, having your clients and stuff like that, and people get to know you, to just say, I close everything. It was really tough, very tough. But one day I just decided and said, that's it. And I sold everything to the first comer. And after that, if you want to know what I did, well, I started first by saying, okay, I didn't do much of software engineering, software development, so maybe I should focus on this. And this is what I was targeting also when I studied. So I started by reading my old courses first. Then I registered to take a Master of Science. But in the meantime, while I was selling and everything, I took all the books. I didn't go to class. I studied on my own the first year, and then I succeeded. The second year, I went and I worked on my thesis and all the rest, and I graduated with great honors. So I didn't even look for my first job. So my first job as an employee, I didn't look for a job. Somebody had noticed me and talked to someone else, and and then they came to the university and then let's say headhunted me, and that was the start of my second career, let's say.
That's great. And so I from what I hear, what has been important as well is ongoing learning, keep learning, keep taking courses. I've seen that you've graduated from several on several topics. And I suppose that in your industry, it's important to be up to date with the latest information, technology, and so on.
So indeed, and I always did, let's say, what I thought I should do at the right moment. So I didn't, for example, when I finished, I didn't take a Master of Science or an MBA directly after I finished. And I just wanted to work because I had this passion, this curiosity, and I just wanted to be there. And I took my MBA between 2005 and 2007, when my two kids were born at the same time. So, and I was working at the same time. But when I took it, I already had the experience. So everything that I was, let's say, hearing, I had already experienced a lot of it. I understood how important it was. And it was at a level in my career where I wanted to move forward into management. So it helped me a lot. Now, when I left my last employer 2 years ago, I already had been working for a few years in digital transformation. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about digital transformation, I don't talk about digitization, meaning going from paper to digital. I'm more talking about creating something that can have an impact on the business, really a big impact, not just digitalization. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I have learned, that I validated somehow. And that's why I took my last course at MIT, because it was important for me to see, okay, can I do it? And so it was, the funny thing there is my kids. So my kids seeing their dad studying, studying late and studying several hours. At the same time I was working. And so, and they used to come and do like this. And my kids are 13 and 14.
And it's important, especially nowadays, that everything is changing so fast that in order to keep with the pace, you need to, to read, to take courses, to learn from other people, because otherwise you very soon you will be not up to date to the reality of the market.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you really, and it's also kind of important when you go forward in your life, and when you are about a certain age, over 50, let's say, so then it's important to show to everybody that you're still up to date, right? And that you still have that energy, so that shouldn't be a showstopper, because you are at a certain age that you stopped learning, right? And one of the things also that we are trying to do in Skilon is encourage diversity. So in fact, the next version that will be published in the next 2 weeks will be managing this in a better way. A lot of people are talking about diversity, but maybe they're not doing much about it. And what we're doing is that if you're a recruiter and looking for a candidate, you shouldn't care about the color of their skin, about their gender, about their age. All you should care about is they have the skills or not.
Yeah.
If it's a person having 50 years old or 35, if they have what it takes, then this is what you should do. And then this is why we kind of hide the private data for the recruiter. Then when they say we want somebody with the skills A, B, C, and then they use our search engine and they find maybe, let's say, 20, 30 persons with those skills A, B, C. When they select them, and our business model works on buying credits, so you have to unhide the data, but you have to buy credits to unhide the data. And only then that you discover that this person is maybe 50 years old, but you saw very well that he had 17 or 18 over 20 on his assessment, so he's really very skilled.
Yeah.
Of course, the recruiter can still decide to take somebody else younger or somebody of a different gender, but we are supporting diversity by first, when your first selection is not based on your gender or age or anything else. Or
yeah, which is very important. Great. So you started as an entrepreneur quite young, and then you started again older. Is there a big difference between the young entrepreneur and the older one in terms of course you have more experience, but is anything different?
I learned patience. Let's say that, in my first early years, I started many things. I was like, let's say, okay, not Steve Jobs, but kind of a visionary. So I wanted to start things, but I never had the patience to let's say, to know that these things will take time.
Yeah.
Will take time, that there is something which, well, anything new comes with something that's called change management, right? And change management always starts by, I don't want that. And then it says, maybe it's not that bad. And okay, some people are liking it. And then, okay, someone wants it just because the other one has it. And then it becomes something like, for example, just to give you one example, all those websites now where we go and we look for a car and we see online and we compare. Okay, so late 1990s, I had already created one where there was absolutely no other website like this, and I kept it for 1.5 years, but it was not moving. It was not really, working as it should. It was not bringing any money. I had like 300 companies there, but I was not getting any money. and I didn't want any money at the beginning, but I just wanted more and more cars from more parties. But it was not really. And at the end, I said, okay, I let it go. And 2 years later, they started, other websites selling, cars like Autoscooter and Cat and stuff like that.
I think that also.
I had the pictures.
Yeah, I think also the thing is that sometimes a new product or a new service arrives on the market too early and that people are not ready for it. It happens a lot of the time. So maybe the thing is that your product was great and it worked very well for others afterwards, but maybe you were, it was too early because people were not ready for it.
Yes, but the difference, let's say, also now is that I know this fact that it can be, and in the same way when we developed Skilon, when I had the idea of Skilon, and after my partner Charlotte joined me in that, so we are the co-founders, me and Charlotte. We know that we are redefining somehow the sourcing and hiring process.
Yeah.
So we know that this might take some time to change, but we know where the world is going. We did a lot of statistics, we did a lot of work, we have the experience, and we're quite excited about what we're doing since 15 months, and the excitement didn't stop, and the team is getting bigger also. So we started with 2, and now we are 6, and next month 7.
Oh, great.
So that's a good start.
And are you, so the company is based in Luxembourg, I suppose?
Yes.
And the team, you are spread out in Luxembourg and maybe in I think you told me in India for development.
Yes, so we have in India, and now recently also from Lebanon, which is my country of origin. So there are lots of talented people. It's a good thing now to market Lebanon. So we had one additional person who's working on revamping our homepage, because although we created a very nice process and platform behind it, technically working perfectly, we do believe from all the feedback that we got that we have to revamp the homepage, and it's fine. One has to accept, because when you're much in it, you don't sometimes see the small details, but others see them, and then
exactly.
we took it into consideration. And now we're working with the new version, which is very lovely.
Great. Looking forward to see it. Maybe lastly, well, not lastly, but do you have, on the more personal side, do you have any passion of yours that you could share with us, that something that is not linked to work? What are you doing outside of work? Or maybe are you only working?
Well, recently mostly working, but let's say, of course, it's not gardening, although I do it. But it's basically music. So when I was much younger, I used to be a DJ in an FM radio station, and also in a club. So I used to play pop, dance, techno, house music. So yeah, I did it like for several years. So I was more, let's say, semi-professional in that. So, but I don't talk a lot about it. I still have my mixer at home, but in the past it was with vinyls. Now it's on my laptop.
Yeah. So maybe when we get into a full lockdown, get out of the lockdown, maybe we can, sometime have a gathering with a DJ, which will be you behind, organizing the music.
Yeah, featuring DJ Elias.
Or maybe, a big launching party for Skilon, DJ Elias. Well, lastly, what are the maybe 2, 3, or maybe more best tips or advice that you could give our listeners wanting to launch their own business, to start as entrepreneurs?
Well, that's that's a tough one. I can give lots of examples, but let's say I'll give my own my own advice is more personal. You know, my first tip is, I always say, and I go by that, life is what you make it. So in other words, if you want something, it's for you to go and get it. It will not be easy, and not everyone has the courage to take that extra mile. I mean, especially if you think about entrepreneurship, how many people think about it, but how many actually take the step? Because it's a big step. When you're an employee, it's a good thing, and I mean, I'm not saying that being an employee is not what you should do. And I've been an employee for 18 years of my life, and I enjoyed it. And this is what helped me be what I am today. But I mean, that's a big step. So I think it depends how badly you want it to do it. So that's the first one. Second one would be a tip maybe that I learned from my first boss. My first boss, who said, you know, at the time I was software engineer, so I was coding or sometimes trying to find a bug, and he used to say, Elias, if it takes you more than 15 minutes to find the reason for the bug or the defect, it means you're not looking in the right direction. Well, he was exaggerating. 15 minutes is maybe a little bit short, but I got the intent behind that. And I apply this also to my business development. If you're trying to develop your business in one way, and it's not working since several months, you don't necessarily need to give up, but open several different options in parallel. Don't just say, okay, I will keep and maybe so question yourself about it. And the last tip that I can say, that I can give is, it might seem as a cliche, but if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then move on. I mean, it doesn't make sense to take the road of an entrepreneur to do things that you don't like.
I totally agree. If you don't like, I mean, I've heard it from a lot of people, and you're right. If you don't like what you're doing, it's going to be very difficult to be an entrepreneur, because you need energy, you need passion, and if you don't like what you're doing, it's not possible. Totally right.
Okay, so
yeah. Well, we are getting to the end of the podcast. So, if our listeners want to connect with you, or maybe candidates that are interested by the new platform Skilon, what is the best way to do that? And I will put the information in the notes of the podcast.
Well, I'm available on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I think this is one of the best ways to find me. You can also, of course, contact me by mail, and so you have my email address too. I think that either info@elias.lu, or if it's about something else or whatever, over LinkedIn, I'm reachable and I connected all the time there. So
okay, great.
Okay, and any questions regarding Skilon or what I do is people are welcome. And what I actually am doing, for example, just to give an example of, okay, you talk about digital. So what are you actually doing? So my current client is in the pharma business, but all my previous clients in the past 1.5 years, let's say, were more in the finance in Luxembourg. So, and this one is in Brussels. In the pharma business, so I expanded out of Luxembourg, and I'm running 2 projects. I'm running in the creation of an AI academy, artificial intelligence academy, within that company of 9,000 people. And in parallel, I'm running a project which is related into using data analytics to forecast the budget. So they have a budget of 6 billion euros, billion, not million. And so we are creating a solution which is going to create it with a click of a button every year, instead of spending months to create the budget and spend about 1 million to do the budget.
Great.
So yeah, great. It's a very, very interesting project.
So so I suppose that you are very busy with all your projects. So that's cool, and And as you said before, you must be enjoying it to keep doing it.
That's what keeps me running. Yes, definitely. I suppose it's the same for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same for me. Okay. Thanks a lot, Elias, for joining the podcast. I really enjoy our discussion, and talk to you soon.
Thank you a lot. Thank you, Stefan. And I think that we will be cooperating also together in the context of Skilon, because what you are providing as a service is a great service that will also support us in bringing candidates from outside the country into Luxembourg.
We never know, and we will be happy to assist. Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.